Now, head of the state-owned enterprise restructuring unit, Suresh Shah, says that the narrative pushed for by the opposition that restructuring SOEs simply implies the sale of them is wrong and takes away the focus of the people from the real objective. Speaking to Indiva Yamamoto at Hyde Park on Other Derana 24, he went on to say that the state enterprises cannot be identified as national assets given they were established for commercial purposes, and emphasizing that the goal of bringing about reform is to ensure productivity, create a competitive investment environment and provide goods and services at better prices.
There is narrative being built that you are attempting to sell our most valuable public resources, our assets of the country. What is this unit trying to do?
So, first and foremost, I must say that this narrative is extremely unfortunate, because when you think of the country's most valuable resources, they are not these entities. To me, as a citizen, I would think that the most valuable resources we have as a country is our youth population, our health sector, our education sector, our geographical location, proximity to India and the rest of Asia, kind of a gateway to Asia in a sense, the ocean that surrounds our country, the environment which allows us to generate a lot of renewable energy, the irrigation system of our country. These are the genuine assets that we have as a nation, which we should be leveraging to transform Sri Lanka. These small entities, at the end of the day, are small entities compared to all these other things that I spoke about. You can't call these the national resources of Sri Lanka. These are commercial entities, right? And when you think of all these other things that I told you about, these are extremely small. We are creating this narrative as a result, which completely takes away the focus from what we should be doing.
Are you trying to sell these small assets?
When we talk about state-owned enterprise restructuring, unfortunately, everyone focuses on this aspect of sale. But when you think in very broad terms, SOE restructuring is about three very fundamental things. First and foremost, it's about providing citizens of this country with better goods and services at reasonable prices. That's the very first thing about SOE restructuring. Secondly, SOE restructuring is about creating a competitive business environment, because that's what attracts investment, and investment is what creates jobs, and jobs is what people get to be able to manage their daily life. And thirdly, and very importantly also, SOE restructuring is all about focusing government's resources on fundamental priorities. So I would think, government has only a limited amount of cash. Where do you spend your resources so that it gives the best outcome to the citizens?
How would you ensure that these policies don't change with change of government? This is a problem we have seen throughout.
This is one of the very fundamental challenges that we have. I think that's also a responsibility of all of us as citizens. We need consistency in anything. I think we need to apply pressure on our politicians, whether it's us as individuals, whether it's institutions like the Ceylon Chamber, institutions like the Bar Association. There is space in our country, particularly at this moment in time, because we are in a pretty serious crisis.
There's a lot of concern about the government's attempt to sell, again, going to a sale of profit-making entities when your focus should be loss-making entities that need urgent reforms and restructuring. Why is this?
The responsibility of government is to provide its citizens with essential goods and services, reasonable quality, reasonable price. It does not need government to be the person who's doing it. So there are ways in which we can discharge our responsibilities without actually creating, the whole infrastructure that's required to do that. So the role of government is to ensure that citizens get essential goods and services at a reasonable price with a reasonable level of quality. Now, there are many ways in which this can be built. And usually what happens is you get the private sector to do this. Why? Because the private sector is way more efficient in doing that. And the more efficient you are, and in that competitive environment that I spoke to you about, that is what ensures good quality and reasonable price. But there is a much bigger reason for this. Government's fundamental responsibilities, it would be national security, law and order, economic policy, it'll be education policy, right? It'll be healthcare policy. It's all of these things. These are far more important than running some company.